On the wild Atlantic edge of Ireland, where the sea carves the land into jagged memories, a secret lay buried for over 1,000 years. Eyrephort, a quiet stretch of dunes in County Galway, was never meant to hold a warrior's story. But in 1947, after a storm tore at the coastline, a local man stumbled upon something extraordinary, the rusted hilt of a Viking sword protruding from the shifting sands. Beneath it, in a grave aligned southwest to northeast, lay the remains of a man who had traveled farther than most of his kind, only to find his rest in a foreign land. He would come to be known not by name, but by a sterile code, VK543. The archaeologists who examined his grave pieced together a portrait from fragments, revealing that he was young, perhaps in his early 20s, a man in the prime of his fighting years. And the sword at his side, a Scandinavian Type K, was no cheap weapon. It was a warrior's sword, heavy with the cost of forging and the weight of status. A spearhead socket lay near his legs, and at his torso, the domed boss of a round shield, the heart of a Viking's defense. These were not trinkets of a farmer or trader, but the tools of war, laid to rest with care. There were no Christian markers, no carvings or crosses. This was a pagan burial, a man who died as he had lived, Norse in life and in death, forever entwined with the stories of his people. For decades, VK543 was a silent relic of the Viking age, his bones stored in archives, and his sword a museum piece. Then, in 2020, science gave him a voice as researchers sequenced his genome, and his story deepened. He was Norwegian by ancestry, as the artifacts had long suggested, but his DNA told us something more personal. He likely had brown hair, brown eyes, and a darker complexion than the blonde warrior of myth. His Y chromosome belonged to haplogroup R1b, a paternal lineage carried across generations of men before him, revealing that in his cells there was nothing legendary. Just a man of flesh and blood, young and mortal, who left his home for reasons we can only imagine. Glory, survival, or perhaps the pull of adventure. What makes VK543's story even more remarkable is what happened next. As ancient genomes were compared with modern ones, a curious thing happened. People began to find him. A 23andMe user in another country, maybe in Ireland, maybe across the ocean, logged in and discovered a new historical match. They shared segments of DNA with VK543. This didn't mean they descended directly from him. His grave gave no evidence of a family left behind, but it meant that somewhere, 30 or more generations ago, their ancestors and his overlapped. They carry in their bodies the same distant code, a whisper from a warrior buried in Irish sands, reminding us that VK543 was not a king nor a famous chieftain. His name is lost, his deeds unrecorded, yet his presence in Galway tells us something vital about the Viking story, demonstrating that it wasn't only Dublin or the great ports that shaped Norse-Irish history. It was also the unnamed men on rugged shores, setting camp in the shadow of the mountains, carving out a brief chapter in a foreign land. His grave is one of the few Viking burials west of the Shannon, proof that the Norse world reached farther than most imagine. Today, the dunes of Eyrephort are quiet again. The sword lies behind glass, the bones preserved in sterile archives, but VK543's story still travels. In every map tracing his journey from Norway, in every genome match that lights up a screen, in every person who wonders if a piece of him runs in their blood, this nameless warrior lives on. He crossed the sea for reasons we will never fully know, but through storm and time, his story has found its way back to us, echoing the lives lived in pursuit of adventure and belonging. This story encourages us to reflect on the journeys that shaped our world, reminding us that every name has a history, and every warrior contributes to the tapestry of human experience.